Number 7. Cryptoqueen. Ruja Ignatova, who's notoriously known as the Cryptoqueen, was added to the FBI's most wanted list in June 2022 for securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and more. Ruja is best known as the founder of a cryptocurrency scheme called OneCoin, which was described simply by the Times as one of the biggest scams in history. She was accused of defrauding investors out of more than $4 billion. She is now the 11th woman in 72 years to be placed on the top 10 most wanted list. She co-founded OneCoin in 2014 with her partner Carl Sebastian Greenwood. According to Special Agent Ronald Shimko, countless victims worldwide were financially devastated by this. The feds think Ruja was tipped off by someone close to her. She was under an international and federal probe shortly before being charged in the Southern District Court of New York. Unfortunately, the woman has been on the run ever since 2017, the year she was formally charged, and she's continued to avoid police at every turn. On October 25, 2017, Ruja traveled from Bulgaria to Athens in Greece, her last known location. The woman speaks German, Bulgarian, and English. The FBI believes that she's likely using a fake passport as well. She naturally has dark hair and brown eyes, but investigators think that she may have changed her appearance to blend in. To this day, Ruja remains at large. Number 6. MS-13 gang leader. Yulan Adonai Archaga Correas, sometimes referred to as Alexander Mendoza or Porky, is the alleged leader of a violent criminal organization called MS-13. He was added to the FBI's most wanted list in November 2021. Yulan is currently wanted for several things including narcotics trafficking, racketeering, and firearms offenses. He's allegedly in charge of the MS-13 Honduras section, and it's believed he's also providing narcotics, firearms, and cash to members of the gang operating within the U.S. Authorities have accused Yulan of being the man responsible for ordering the death of multiple rival gang members. At the moment, the FBI still thinks Yulan is hiding out somewhere in Honduras. The criminal was initially charged in New York's Southern District, and he's the 536th fugitive to earn a place on the wanted list. It's believed that he facilitated the transportation of several tons of cocaine that originated in Honduras, but somehow ended up in the U.S. through an unknown means of transportation. Yulan is also accused of conspiracy to possess machine guns that were utilized by gang members supporting international drug trafficking. A Honduran tribunal convicted Yulan of conspiracy as well as a few other charges in August 2018, resulting in a lengthy prison sentence. But before being taken behind bars, he managed to escape Honduran custody in early 2020, when about 20 of his accomplices wore military and police uniforms as disguises and stormed into the courthouse where Yulan was scheduled for a hearing. Multiple actual police officers were killed during the dangerous escape. The 40-year-old fugitive has black hair and brown eyes, and it's believed that he only speaks Spanish. He's about 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs roughly 160 pounds. Although authorities think he's in Honduras at the moment, he really could be anywhere in the world, so be sure to keep an eye out for this dangerous criminal. Number 5. Eugene Palmer. Eugene Palmer is a fugitive from Stony Point, New York, wanted for taking the life of his daughter-in-law Tammy back in 2012. He wasn't officially placed on the FBI's most wanted list until May 2019 though. On the morning of September 24, 2012, after escorting her 2 young children to the school bus, Tammy would never return home. It's believed that Palmer hid and waited out in the woods, then fired at Tammy with his shotgun while she walked back to her house. He first struck her in the arm, and then moved closer in order to hit her at close range in the chest, proving fatal. Immediately after the shooting, Palmer fled the scene in body in his green Dodge Ram pickup truck. While the truck would soon be found outside Harriman State Park, located in Rockland County, Palmer was nowhere in sight. The last known trace of the criminal was picked up by search dogs who followed the man's scent to a remote, secluded campground in the woods. But since then, there's been no other reported sightings or traces of the man, and he remains missing to this day. A federal arrest warrant was issued for the fugitive on June 10, 2013, but according to the Haverstraw police, Palmer's family members have expressed that they truly believe he died in Harriman State Park. This theory has been widely dismissed by a severe lack of evidence and the fact that despite multiple searches of the area, his body has not been recovered. Palmer is an expert outdoorsman and an experienced angler, hiker, and hunter. He does depend on several medications for diabetes and his heart condition though, and his left thumb is deformed. This makes it unlikely that he's been hiding out in the woods all this time. Authorities believe he could be in upstate New York or Florida, where he has relatives, but at the moment, they're entirely uncertain. On July 20th, 2022, Palmer was taken off the FBI's most wanted list for unknown reasons, but despite his removal, he remains a wanted murderer. Number 4. Alejandro Castillo. Alejandro Castillo was added to the FBI's most wanted list in October 2017 for killing Truc Quan Sandy Lai Lee in Charlotte, North Carolina back in August 2016. He was born in 1988 and was only 17 years old when he committed the crime. That year, he worked at a Shomar's restaurant in Charlotte and was co-workers with the 23-year-old victim. The two of them apparently dated for a brief period before breaking up, and Castillo reportedly owed Lee money but refused to pay it back. But then on August 9, 2016, he sent Lee a text stating that he wanted to finally repay her the money she'd once loaned him. That afternoon, Castillo was picked up by his new girlfriend at the time, Amia Feaster, in her Dodge Caliber, who took him to the meeting he and Lee agreed upon, a quick-trip convenience store. Castillo met his ex there, which was the last place Lee was ever seen alive. Authorities believe that instead of repaying her the money, Castillo forced her to withdraw all the money from her bank account, probably at gunpoint. Lee's bank statement showed that she withdrew at least $1,000 from an ATM in one day, supporting this theory. After robbing Lee, investigators believe Castillo drove her to a remote, wooded area in Cabarrus County. He then shot her in the head and dumped her lifeless body in a nearby ravine, where it was later discovered. Afterward, Castillo and Feaster escaped in a black four-door Toyota Corolla that belonged to Lee and headed to Phoenix, Arizona. The fugitive couple parked the stolen car at a bus shelter there and abandoned the vehicle, which was later found on August 15. They continued on the run, and after making their way to Nogales, the couple crossed the border into Mexico. This move was captured by a few surveillance cameras, but since then, the two of them have yet to be seen. Investigators believe Castillo is still hiding somewhere in Mexico, possibly in Pabellón de Arteaga or in the state of Aguas Calientes. But they also think he could be in the states of Veracruz or Guanajuato. Surprisingly, Castillo's girlfriend Feaster eventually turned herself in to authorities on October 20, 2016 in Aguas Calientes. She was taken back to the U.S. 2 days later and arrested near Houston, Texas by the Harris County Sheriff's Office. According to Feaster, Castillo disappeared at some point, and she wasn't able to find him again, prompting her to turn herself in since she was alone in a strange, foreign country. If someone you loved was wrongfully accused and sent to prison, would you try and help them escape? Or would you trust in our legal system, thinking everything would eventually be worked out? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 3. Arnoldo Jimenez. Arnoldo Jimenez murdered his wife, Estrella Carrera, in Burbank, Illinois on May 12, 2012 in cold blood the day after they got married. 7 years later, on May 8, 2019, he was finally added to the FBI's most wanted fugitives list. Estrella had 2 children, a 2-year-old son with Jimenez and a 9-year-old daughter from a past relationship. After their wedding at Chicago City Hall, the couple had dinner with friends and family members before heading to a nightclub. They reportedly partied there until 4 a.m. before leaving. The FBI now believes that on the way home at some point that night, the pair got into a heated argument in Jimenez's car. Then, Jimenez stabbed Estrella multiple times in the vehicle, brutally killing her. When he finally got back to his apartment, he dragged her lifeless body inside and dumped her in the bathtub. Estrella was apparently still wearing her silver wedding dress. The woman was scheduled to pick up her children from family members later that day, but she never showed up. This was when they reported her missing to police. Estrella's body was found in the apartment on May 13th, and officers found no sign of forced entry. Jimenez had also vanished along with the crime scene, his car. A state warrant was issued for the man's arrest, and the fugitive was soon accused of first-degree murder. A federal warrant was also issued to him on May 17th after he was charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Investigators tracked Jimenez to Chicago and then down through southern Illinois. but they realized that his phone was later used in Tennessee and Arkansas. Afterward, he also made calls from Houston and Hidalgo, Mexico. Today, his current whereabouts are unknown, but the FBI believes he could be hiding out in several spots including Durango, Mexico or Reynosa, Tamaulipas. Number 2. Alexis Flores. Alexis Flores was responsible for the murder of an innocent 5-year-old girl in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania back in 2000. He's a Honduran fugitive and is wanted for kidnapping and multiple sexual assault charges. Flores was added to the FBI's most wanted list on June 2, 2007, and still remains at large. During summer in 2000, a homeless drifter named Carlos was given clothing, shelter, and work by Hunting Park in Philadelphia, which was owned by Jorge Contreras. But on August 3rd, the body of Iriana de Jesus was found in the basement of an empty apartment building, the same place Carlos was staying. When authorities questioned Contreras about the death, he recognized a t-shirt from the crime scene and said he'd lent it to Carlos. After the murder, Carlos, aka Flores, left the area, but he was arrested 2 years later in Arizona for a petty shoplifting charge. Then, in 2004, officers went to Flores' new residence in response to a noise complaint. He gave fraudulent identity documents to the police and shortly after was once again arrested for possession of a forgery device. The authorities noted that when they brought him in for questioning, he had a kind, friendly demeanor and cooperated with the investigation. But when they went in to search his apartment, they found pornography all across the floors. Flores ended up serving 60 days in jail and was deported to Honduras after his release in June 2005. But a year later, his DNA was matched to the DNA found at the crime scene in the Philadelphia apartment where he murdered the young girl. It was then that police discovered that Carlos and Flores were the same person. In 2007, he was added to the FBI's most wanted fugitives list, but he's been on the run ever since. Flores is considered to be armed and extremely dangerous. He speaks English and Spanish, and it's believed that he could still be in either Honduras or in the US under an alias. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information that could lead to his capture. It's time this man was finally taken off the streets. Number 1. Omar Alexander Cardenas. Omar Alexander Cardenas is an alleged member of the notorious Los Angeles-based Pierce Street gang, and he's wanted for a murder that happened in 2019. 46-year-old Jabali Dumas was shot and killed on August 15, 2019, outside a barbershop in LA's Sylmar neighborhood. Michael Moore, the LAPD chief, stated that Omar fired 9 rounds at Jabali from about 30 feet away, with one fatally striking him in the head. The victim passed away at the crime scene, and Omar was seen escaping in his vehicle after the shooting. Authorities believe that in an attempt to avoid getting arrested, Omar fled to Mexico. The fugitive was officially charged with the murder in April 2020, and in September 2021, he was also charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Then, in July 2022, Omar was added to the FBI's most wanted fugitives list, where he has remained to this day. While it's mostly believed Omar is somewhere in Mexico, the FBI thinks he could also be in Southern California, where he has many friends and family members. He could be earning money as a construction worker in order to keep a low profile. Omar is 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighs something between 240 and 300 pounds. He's Hispanic, has brown hair and brown eyes. If you see him, be sure to report to the authorities, who are offering up to $100,000 for information leading to his capture. Which of these criminals do you think deserve to be on the FBI's most wanted list the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Bad Badger.